Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Friday, and welcome back to our series, The Pagan Housewife. This week we're going to be talking about how to make our winter seasons just a little bit more magical. Now, when I'm talking about magical, I'm not really referring, at least in this video, to spells and enchantments and charms and house protections and all this and that. Those things all have their place. And anything that we do in our homes, whether it's the foods we eat or it's, the materials we have around us, the animals and pets we have in our homes, or even the colors we use in our decor, these all have their own magical properties, and we can use them to our full advantage to make the season more bearable. But what I'm talking about in this video is more about the atmosphere that those of us who are taking more charge of running the household, what kind of atmosphere are we creating within the home? And we're going to be looking at this through the lens of our five physical senses. Paganism is, a very earthy, very rooted kind of spirituality. We talk a lot about drawing upon the energies of the four elements. We talk a lot about, being fully immersed in our environments. But the reality is that we also live in a very digitized world. We have lots of visuals. We're very good at making use of our visual senses. But what about taste? What about touch? What about hearing and smell? All of these things, it's supposed to all work together. And while obviously that's impossible to create, in a digital context, we can work on this within our own homes. And honestly, I think we'd be a lot better off getting ourselves re-grounded into our physical world. So let's talk about taste first. What we eat and drink can do a lot to drive away winter's chill. These do not have to be unhealthy options, although, we're only human. I don't think anyone will get on our case too badly if we have some indulgences. But when you think about healthier options, think about soups and stews that are really heavy on the protein, heavy on the use of the root vegetables. These things nourish the body, and of course, also the spices that we use or are more prone to using at this time of year. They can make our foods taste warm. Peppers, for example, that can leave us feeling all roasty toasty from the inside out. And of course, when we are feeling warm internally, when we are feeling nourished, that's going to make it a lot easier to face the cold of winter, with a relative degree of cheerfulness, because I understand this is a really tough time of year for a lot of people. But, this is all about how to combat that. Another thing we might do as far as the food front is concerned is to not underestimate the comfort of freshly baked bread right out of the oven. The saying, we are what we eat, well, take it to its logical conclusion. If we are eating things that are warm, if we are eating things that make us feel comforted and feel better, we're going to be more mentally fortified. And again, going a step forward, every ingredient in our kitchen does have those magical properties. If we take the time and the trouble to activate and to direct those energies, we can attract health and luck and prosperity and many other things that will improve our overall state of being. It's just about us getting into the routine of doing this. Now, what about our sense of touch? I came up with three things that I thought were especially appropriate for winter. One thing is fuzzy textures, furry textures, like those lovely blankets that you see in all the stores. That you touch them and it's just you just want to keep petting them. And speaking of petting our cats, petting our dogs, there's just something comforting about the texture in and of itself. It makes us feel more insulated from the cold, and feeling more insulated from the cold, that gets us halfway to hibernation mode. And while we don't literally sleep the winter away, it is a time of rest. It's a time to slow down. It is a time of napping. And if we can do that with our fuzzy blankets and our nice little cozy, cuddly pets, then we'll be so much better off. Another good thing for the sense of touch is really woolen materials. Sweaters, tweeds. That's another way to keep warm, another way to make winter less troublesome, or even something to look forward to. Because, you're not going to want to get out the tweed, and you're not going to be wanting to wear your sweaters, or for that matter, even working on your knitting, if it's 90 zillion degrees outside. Embrace the advantages that winter gives us. It gives us a chance to enjoy these nice, cozy textures. And speaking of knitting, just touching that texture of the yarn, and there's all kinds of different yarns you could be working with. It just makes us feel mentally better, as well as making kind of our rest and relaxation time still something that is productive, whether you could be making a scarf or knitting another sweater or making an afghan, whatever it is, it's still productive while not being entirely too strenuous, because I don't know about you, but this year especially is just, the energy just feels drained right out of my body, and I suspect I'm not alone in that. Now, the third texture I wanted to bring up is that of velvet. And yes, this is a pricier material, but a bit of velvet here and a bit of velvet there is probably not going to break anyone's bank. You don't have to do all of your drapes in it, although that would be warm. But anything that has kind of a velvety feel to it, it could be a bathrobe. It could be, the drapes, as I mentioned, because if you can afford such a thing, that does a really good job of blocking any icy air currents that might be sneaking their way into the home. Or, it could be something simple like a throw pillow. It's just another texture that improves the winter experience. It makes it a little bit nicer, and it makes us less focused mentally and emotionally on, the downsides of the season. So, smell, which is very closely related to taste. But there are certain scents that are just, they feel warm to us. Some examples would be vanilla or cinnamon or nutmeg, cloves, cardamom, ginger, allspice, things of that nature. Because in addition to their magical properties, they create an atmosphere in the house that just feels warm, regardless of what the temperature is outside. Although if you are wanting to embrace the natural crispness of winter, you might want to bring some scents that are in the mint family. Peppermint, spearmint, regular mint, whatever kind of mint that it is. There's something about it that you breathe it in and it's just mentally clarifying. So if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed or just like, I can't deal with any more stress, or you just need to be, you're feeling overstimulated and you're wanting to take that down a notch and calm things down, mint just might be your friend. It's not necessarily going to make you feel warm, but it is going to clear out your mind. Another thing we could try is more stimulating scents from the citrus family, orange, lemon, lime, and the like. All citrus is very clean smelling, and that scent of just the clean, it can be this mental reset. Not necessarily so much as clearing away all of your mental cobwebs the way the mint family does, but it just makes you feel a little bit more, okay, my surroundings are back to zero. There's a reason why so many of our cleaning products tend to be flavored from the citrus family. It's because it's giving that everything is in order feeling. Things have been set back to zero. Things are under control. And having a sense of control, or at least of your own home environment, when the winter is doing goodness knows what outside. It might be a nice, pleasant day today, and tomorrow you might be facing a blizzard. It's just hard to say. And even if it looks like a nice, sunshiny day outside, if there's a wind, well, depending on the temperature of that wind, that could get pretty brutal. But so you can't control what's going on out there, but if you can create the atmosphere that you want inside the home, right down to the scents, you will have a little bit more fortitude to face whatever you need to face. Now, our sense of hearing. I think one of the best and one of my most favorite things to hear during any of the colder months is a crackling fire. Now, obviously, if it would be nice if we could all have a big roaring fireplace. That is the ideal situation. That's not the reality. Then that's not the reality I'm living with right now either. However, burning candles and the like, that can help. But also playing some of those fireplace videos that are all over YouTube and social media. That has a way of cozying up the home. It can even fool and trick your mind into feeling like you are warmer and cozier than you actually are, just because you can hear that little pop and crackle. Another thing is laughter. Being able to laugh generally makes things a lot better. So whether you're watching a lot of comedies, or you're watching stand-up, or you're just you're around people and you're visiting with them and you're telling stories, you're having a good time, and things are funny and you're laughing and everything's good, that helps just bring everything in the house up, including your mood, even if you are fighting off some major seasonal depression, because at least in that moment, things are good, things are okay, and you're not being as confronted with the brutality of the season outside. Another thing we could try is music. Music is very transportive. It has a way of absorbing our moods, even our very, very bad moods. So, go ahead, pick out, some kind of music. It can be instrumental, it can be non-instrumental, whatever it is, whatever you like, whatever makes you feel better. let that absorb some of the excess energies that you're struggling to keep contained, especially if it's about, I can't believe it's gray and overcast again today, or will the snow ever melt? Huh? Will I ever be warm again? If you can have some way to take all of that agitation and just let something else absorb it, you'll be in a better position, mentally and emotionally and psychologically to deal with whatever winter's going to throw at you because you're not dragging yourself down. And that's really why I'm really focused in this video on attending to our physical senses. Because if we are taking care of that, we're going to have less wear and tear on our brains and our emotions. And sometimes we just forget about that. Now, our last physical sense we are going to deal with is sight. And I'm not talking about the sight of watching endless movies and never looking out the window. I'm talking about looking out of that window and embracing the beauty of the fresh snow or an austere landscape or seeing just the basic structure. Here's the buildings, here's the trees, here's the evergreens, and just seeing kind of everything's at their bare bones and learning to appreciate the stark beauty of that. And especially if it's snow, it's a lot easier to do because, that when snow is just fallen and it's fresh and nothing's touched it, it's like a blank page, piece of paper. It's just begging to be written on, and it has a way of stimulating the creative juices. Now, you don't have to go outside to admire it. You can be inside, wrapped in a blanket with your cup of cocoa. That's just fine. But learning to see that this is a beautiful thing. This is not something that is attacking you. This is something that is helping insulate the earth, and it has its good natural qualities, and it's something that is not intending to tear you down. I think that's a healthy step forward. Now, if you're feeling more adventurous, get outside with your kids, build the snowman, make you little snow angels, and whatever else it is that people do. And just find some way to appreciate the landscape as it is. Now, if that is utterly beyond you and you simply cannot bring yourself to find anything good about the winter landscape, turn your attention to dreaming of next year's garden. Find a book or a magazine, go on Pinterest, and just gaze at the greenery, whether you're looking at vegetable gardens or home orchards or, flower beds, whatever kind of landscaping you're interested in, whether it's for, growing your own food or it's just because you want to have, a little bit more curb appeal. Just focus on that. You can focus on that, start making plans, brainstorm, think about, what is probably going to be within your budget to do, what adjustments you can make, and winter can pass around you and you won't be, tearing yourself down over it. The last thing we could do as far as sight is concerned is really choose the colors that we use in our home wisely. Now, I realize that for quite a number of years now, there has been a near exclusive use of neutrals in home decor, and it's being strongly encouraged and pushed in many quarters by influencers and by, various companies and so on and so forth. And some people do genuinely find a neutral, heavy environment to be restful, that it actually does reduce their stress. And other people say that it does because that's what they have been influenced to say. But at all events, by the time we get to the third week of January, and especially once we're into February, I think most of us have been dealing with a very neutral, very monochromatic exterior landscape for a while now. And maybe that's gotten a bit too oppressive and stagnant and a little bit too samey. I mean, it's not like, during Yule and Christmas when we have all those pretty decorations and sparkles to keep us distracted. We're talking about deep winter here. And if the outside is the same and the inside is the same, is it possible, maybe just a little bit, that the reason why some people get so down is because they're essentially looking at the same kind of landscape and it's not making them feel rested, it's not making them feel de-stressed, it's just the same and stagnant. So what I would suggest is, even if you are, hell-bent on having your neutrals all the time, I would suggest adding at least one accent color to your decor during January, even February, maybe a nice cold, icy blue to represent the season. You can have a few touches here and there, your candles, your floral arrangements, maybe get another throw blanket, whatever it is, but it will relieve the sameness just enough to where you are feeling the right amount of stimulation in your home, and to where you're not feeling as though you're just kind of lost in this blah. And of course, if it's only one accent color, I think it's unlikely that it would become overwhelming for people who think that they will be overstimulated or will add to their stress or will make things harder or whatever it is that's going through your minds. But I think that if you allow just a little bit in, it will reduce your chances of being understimulated and reduce your chances of cabin fever and reduce your chances of getting seriously depressed. Because I think that if you are looking at everything the same all the time, you are more likely to get depressed because there's nothing going on around you. There's nothing in motion. And of course, winter, of all times of year, I think that is when we are most prone to having that feeling because, we are in closer quarters. We are not doing as much. So it's something to think about. It's something to think about. Now, for the color lovers amongst us. You do have tribe. Do not be fooled by the lack of color on my wall. Currently, where I live, I am not allowed to paint the walls. However, once my living situation changes, definitely there will be color, lots and lots of color. But the point is that if you are already a lover of color, and that's just something that you've embraced into your home and the way you decorate, late winter just might be the perfect time to start layering in more color through blankets or afghans, really wildly colorful floral arrangements. Repaint the walls something adventurous if you can. Just do what you can to make the inside of the home as different as possible from the outside. It's kind of like the people who will be, looking at their gardening books like, nope, I'm not looking at the outside right now. I'm not looking at things as they are. I'm looking at what I'm going to make them. It's a very similar thought process of like, yeah, it's very gray, it's very brown, it's very bleak, it's very cold outside, but inside I have color and I have flowers and there are different textures and I feel glad to be alive. Whatever it is that you need to do for your home to make it, more visually appealing to you, that makes it better for the rest of your senses. I think that is something that's going to be very, very important. And if we just embrace the fact that we can do something about this, even if we are feeling, some of those winter blues, that we can do something within our homes to make it more of the atmosphere that's actually going to nurture us, we'll be better off for it. We just have to remember that we do have that power because we create the atmosphere in our homes every single day. And I hope that, looking at your home through the prism of your physical senses, it will help break down the task of, what can you do to make your home more pleasant? What can you do to make it more cozy for you? Especially during the winter, what can you do to make those nasty little hooks of seasonal depression loosen their grip, or better yet, not touch you at all? What can you do when we are focused on the doing? That means we're not indulging the illusions of powerlessness, and it'll help deal with some of that seasonal restlessness that we might begin to feel. Because I don't know about you, but the closer we get to a month, the more I'm like, okay, we've done winter. It's time to be on to the next thing. So if you can relate to that feeling, sprucing up the home a little bit, and you don't have to spend money either. This could be as simple as, taking what you have, moving it around, just stimulating yourself, making your environment different, freshening the energy and making it feel warm and cozy for yourself. That is probably all that's going to be required. And if you are having to spend a little bit of money, going to your local dollar store, getting a few brightly colored flowers, it's not going to break the bank, and it makes more of an impact than what you might imagine. And best of all, they don't require water and they don't die on you. So we have options. And this is just looking at what we can do on strictly on the physical level, let alone when we start looking at like, oh, well, okay, I have this color in my bedroom and it relates to these magical intentions. I can do something with that. Or oh, look what I made in the kitchen. Huh, it has all these ingredients. I can do this spell with that. And this is before we even get to that. I think that if we focus on attending to our physical senses first, that'll kind of give us enough energy and enough fortitude to start thinking about, okay, what can I do with this on the magical level? And then we can really begin to play. And then suddenly, being stuck inside for the winter isn't this evil thing, isn't this horrible thing that we're just stuck with and we have to kind of endure our way through. Instead, it can be a fun, exciting, and creative time for us. And I think that's a much pleasanter way to spend the winter. So I think that's enough rambling for me for the moment. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to talk about, different ways to make your household a little bit more pagan-y, a little bit more magical, please come see me at Blackbird's Brew. I'd love to hear from you. And of course, in the meantime, please, as always, subscribe to this channel, leave a like, leave a comment. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.